Medical Association has filed a counter lawsuit against New York Attorney General Letitia James. And the new development comes one day after the Attorney General announced she is going to take down the powerful organization.
We are seeking an order to dissolve the NRA in its entirety.
General Letitia James announced the lawsuit and has named the NRA as a whole, as well as Executive Vice President Wayne LaPierre and 3 other top officials. Now, James is accusing them of lining their own pockets with donated money, contributing to the loss of more than $64 million in just 3 years. Michael Jaramita is going to join us now. He's a Second Amendment attorney and founder of Jaramita Law, joining us live. John Lott, also, he's the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, and he's the author of Gun Control Myths, How Politicians, the Media, and Botched Studies Have Twisted the Facts on Gun Control. Good to see both of you here. Michael,
Hello.
I'll start with you. As this is a lawsuit, the president weighed in. He called the suit a, quote, terrible idea, even suggesting the NRA move out of New York State. The Attorney General in Texas asked the NRA and told them you could move to Texas. You were welcome in this area. What do you make of this lawsuit? And I might add in, what do you make of the timing of this all?
Well, that's a great point, Shaun. Now, first of all, I will add that there is also a lawsuit being brought in D.C. by the D.C. Attorney General, so they're sort of being attacked on all sides at this point in time. Now, I will say that if you're a card-carrying, dues-paying member of the NRA, you would want to know if your funds are being used improperly. People work very hard to pay these dues. They give their hard-earned money to donate. And if they're being used improperly, lining pockets, people would want to know about it. But it's kind of like the presidential impeachment that took place against President Donald Trump. Right after the man was elected, people were saying, we're going to impeach him right away. They didn't have any grounds. We'll figure out a way to impeach him. Well, then when they bring the impeachment proceedings, people are kind of skeptical as to the motivations. You know, if you're set out to do this from the beginning, how could you possibly be objective and impartial when you're bringing this? Same thing is going on here. Every time you see a Democrat politician run, what do they say? They say, we're going to take down the NRA. We're going to fight the NRA. We're going to stand up to the NRA. Joe Biden's out there saying, I stood up to the NRA in the 90s. I beat the NRA. So how are people supposed to take this objectively? The timing is also impeccable, as you mentioned. We've got an election coming up here. And during the last presidential election, it's the law-abiding gun owner vote that pushed Trump across the finish line, particularly in states like Pennsylvania.
Michael, back to you on this one. Has the NRA ever seen a lawsuit like this one? Are they prepared to fight something like this?
I think the NRA at this point has come to expect the unexpected. They've constantly had a target on their back, so to speak. So as far as staying alive, I think there's a lot of people who are going to get behind them, because even if there are some improprieties going on, and these are the allegations, I'm not saying they're true, but people will want the organization to stand. You've got so many people who are getting firearms training and safety education through the NRA. They do a lot of great things, refuse to be a victim courses for women and things of that nature. And I think people will get behind them in this lawsuit.
Yeah, and I just want to add, NRA made a comment, and we don't know, how strong their pushback again will be, but they say the NRA says this has been a power grab by a political opportunist, in quote on that. I want to get to the heart of it all. That seems to be a big concern on conservatives' minds, John, is gun rights. And some say it's never been more at stake than this November's election, and Dems trying to remove the NRA from the debate. How does this affect those that really are standing behind the Second Amendment?
Well, I think this election means more in terms of whether people are going to be able to keep guns privately in the future than we've ever seen beforehand. Just one comment on what was just said. New York Attorney General James, she promised in her 2018 campaign for the office that she was going to go after the nonprofit status of the NRA, and that was before she did any investigation. I agree with the comment that was just made. I mean, here you have somebody who had made up her mind that there was guilt there before she had even looked at anything. And I have to say also, this notion of dissolving the NRA, it's just months before the election. One thing they're doing is they're imposing huge legal costs. I don't know what the total is exactly, but Shannon Watts, who's the director of Michael Bloomberg's Moms Demand Action yesterday, tweeted out that these lawsuits had cost the NRA $100 million. if the Attorney General from New York is really concerned about the $64 million in deficits that the NRA has been running, that $100 million, if that's correct, would go a long way towards explaining it. But when I'm not an expert on the NRA finances, but when you go and you look at some of the things that they're being accused of, so like one of the attacks is that Wayne LaPierre has taken charter flights. Well, the reason why he's taking charter flights is that when he takes commercial airline flights, he gets accosted by gun control advocates, or
Right.
that his wife has been on the planes. Well, she's not a paid NRA person, but she helps with the fundraising, so it doesn't seem unreasonable that they would help cover their costs. But what's going to be determined right now in this election is whether people can own guns. I'll give you one quick example on that, and that's the courts. People talk about all the judges that Trump has gotten confirmed, the 200, but he's just barely brought the courts back into rough balance. The Democrats control the circuit courts for 24 states in the District of Columbia, which is considered the most important circuit. The Republicans
Right.
in 26.
Which is also, by the way, D.C. again is also suing the NRA as well. Doesn't
Right.
seem to be making a lot of traction. I've been pointing this out, but the Attorney General of D.C. has announced they are suing the NRA as well. So that's two. It seems, Michael, back to you. It seems a bit of a concerted effort here. Again, back to the timing of it all. And I want to blow past the legality of it, because this is something that we will see for quite some time. It was an 18-month investigation. Legally, this is going to play out well past the election. But the political divide, Michael, that this creates here, putting one side of the aisle no matter what, it separates those even more, we dare to say, moving into the presidential election, seeing the NRA being sued at this time by these major attorney generals.
Yeah, the comments from the common people seem to have nothing to do with the allegations themselves, and more towards people who are supporting the Attorney General, saying, good, get those NRA members, get that NRA, bring them down because they're horrible and their cause is horrible. Nothing to do with the allegations themselves. I will tell you that their typical narrative is that the NRA has got all this money and they spend all this money on buying the politicians, and that's why they've got them in their pockets, and everybody else is powerless to the NRA's money. If they were really wasting this kind of money, that seems to counteract that narrative.
Yeah,
Well,
and I would correct myself. I meant attorneys general. Thank you very much. Appreciate both you guys coming on. Michael Jeremita, John Lott, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
John Lott's new op-ed in Newsweek, New York abuses the legal system to target the NRA. Great read there. Also